All right, it's the week of June 23rd, 23. This is your MetaMentors Crypto Rewind and Forecast. We're going to keep it short, only 3 stories this week. Mine is a little lengthy, but I'm going to condense it down. And you got some, as always, hot stories. We just don't get enough information and news on the presidential elections. I wish we could get way more. So you're going to help fill that gap today and their stances on crypto. As we predicted, it's becoming a very, very hot topic for this year or this presidential election coming up. I'm going to talk about Grayscale, or not Grayscale, Blackrocks and Fidelities and Charles Schwab, and all these guys are filing ETFs, which means hundreds of billions of dollars coming into the market once these things start coming down the pipe. So because of that, Bitcoin and crypto is pumped massively since our last show. And then last but not least, you're going to talk about Cardona and their new coin Tuck, which is a trigger word, and I'm not excited to hear about. So I hope they're not falling along the lines with all this crazy political stuff going on. So hang in there. It's a totally different coin than you would think. Tuck is not a trigger word this week. This is your week's MetaMentors Crypto Rewind and Forecast. Let's get it.
All right, so like Ryan was talking about, it's never too early to get started talking about the presidential election, even if it is over a year away. I can't even say that without getting angry. It's way too early to be talking about this kind of stuff. But there is some early front runner. Yes, some people who have announced that they will be running for president on Milk Road, the little newsletter, the crypto newsletter that I like to watch. They've already got the early horses out in front with some of their stats. So the 3 guys we're talking about today are Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, Francis Suarez, the mayor of Miami, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., JFK's nephew. So 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, but all 3 of them are pro-crypto, some to different levels. So first up, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. likes crypto. Actually, he accepts campaign donations via Bitcoin already, which is a good start if they're not just pro-crypto and not just okay with us using crypto, but he's already using it.
Yeah, and he's not just saying it, he's actually living it.
Right, he's already talking about it. Endorsed by Jack Dorsey, the old Twitter guy, who is definitely a pro-crypto guy. So he's got Dorsey has the ear of RF Kennedy Jr., which is always good to have one of those guys in their corner. Governor DeSantis, I like the comparison that Milk Road made. They said, well, his specific quote was, "People have every right to do Bitcoin."
Yeah.
And they said, that's big. Hello, fellow kids. Energy for that meme. So
I'm hip like you guys.
Yes. Hello, fellow kids. How are you doing your Bitcoins today? So, but he's out of the real demographic of the ones that are really into it. And we don't need him to be, huge into it to just allow it. He's definitely anti-CBDCs, which is good.
It's like you told me once, you don't have to understand how it works to benefit from it.
Correct. And as a, you want people that eventually figure out how to use it and realize all the possibilities. But at the very least, if they're just like not against it, that's a good start. And he at least understands the danger of CBDCs, and he's already signed a bill in Florida restricting the use, just saying we're not gonna play that game. No central bank digital currencies in Florida. So he also announced his running for presidency on the Twitter space with Elon Musk. So we've got the former CEO of Twitter and the founder of Twitter, and then the current CEO. I guess he's not the CEO, whatever his position is, the owner of Twitter now is what he launched it. So we've got some very tech-heavy guys, and both of them might pale in comparison to the crypto-friendly mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez. He had a Bitcoin bull built which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It is sweet looking.
Yeah, it's very cool. Obviously, looking like the stock market bull that they've got in front of Wall Street. So that's pretty cool. Right now, he's currently the mayor of Miami. He's the first U.S. mayor to take his salary in Bitcoin. He's trying to get it to where they can pay taxes and pay municipal employees in crypto if they wish to. He's trying to turn the city of Miami into a Bitcoin hub, which actually feels like
He's
it's
succeeding.
working. Yeah, because when
Yes.
you
Yeah.
think
Very
about
much.
what city do you think of when you think of Bitcoin, even if it's only for the major conference that they do every year,
Yeah.
it's Miami. But he's trying to get it above and beyond and really push that. So
I like how it's so. Yeah. I like the comment that built a dope 3,000 pound Bitcoin
built a
bull.
dope 3,000, and this is, even more important than that. What you want in a presidential candidate is he has bazookas for arms. So he is
Definitely helps.
about half the age of everybody else running for president now. I think he's just in his 40s, so he's
I
about
think
half.
DeSantis is though also.
Oh yeah, I
Right.
guess
Yeah.
Ron's
He's like
pretty young.
43, 44
I'm
or something.
thinking of Joe and Trump,
Yeah.
and so those are three early front runners that we've got, throwing their hat into the ring. And these are obviously just one line excerpts from current competition. They post that Joe Biden thinks crypto has no fundamental value, and he released that in his economic report earlier this year. And Donald Trump has been stated as saying that crypto seems like a scam. Now, this is the same President Trump that has released now 2 full NFT lines to earn crypto for his campaign. 2 very successful NFT lines, might I add. So it's okay to think that crypto sometimes seems like a scam, because a lot of times certain players in the crypto industry are a scam. I mean, FTX was a scam and it was crypto. So it's like, I get it. It does make it easy for scam artists to take advantage of the young industry right now. But crypto as a whole, that's like saying gold's a scam because only the rich people have it. And it's like, gold's not a scam. But there are scammers that are trying to get your gold. So it's understandable why people would be uncomfortable with it. Donald Trump uses crypto more than he publicly states that he likes crypto. So I understand, as the president of the United States, you got to put some faith in the American dollar, no matter how much it might be struggling. But it is nice having a couple of young bucks back here coming up with very pro policies, and not just, DeSantis, good, but this Suarez, I think I'm saying that right. Suarez.
Yeah, I think that's all right.
Suarez is actively in the industry. He's growing it, trying to make it better, trying to get Miami to do it. Another important thing to note is I believe all 3 of these gentlemen live in Florida. Or maybe it's DeSantis, Suarez, and Trump, but 3 of the 4 contenders for president are coming from Florida. So there's a pretty good chance our next president will be a Florida man.
Can't blame him.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love Destin.
You actually own some,
Actually, that's a good point. I do own a bit of Crab Island in Next Earth. I actually own a lot of Crab Island. So
enough to actually put your initials on it.
Yes. Yeah, I got the family brand. I've named one of the islands Abby. Oh, yeah.
That's a good name for an island, I must say. It's got a nice ring to it. Yeah.
All right. That's what I've got for America's next crypto president.
All right. Now we're going to talk about the news of the week and possibly the news of the year. Blackrock has now filed a week ago. They filed for a spot ETF, which has not been accomplished. It's been filed before by several other financial institutions, and it's not getting done. This spot ETF has the potential and will most likely bring in hundreds of billions of dollars over the next few years into the crypto market. Basically, it is a huge opening for institutional money. So real quick, what is a spot ETF? More specifically, this is a spot Bitcoin ETF, which means these funds are investing in in Bitcoin. A spot Bitcoin ETF is an exchange traded fund ETF that tracks the price of Bitcoin backed by physical Bitcoins. If it's approved by the U.S., it would be available for trading, traditional stock trading avenues, New York Stock Exchange, all your major funding, your institutional money. Like I said, a spot Bitcoin ETF can be bought on a standard securities exchange and is based on the actual price of Bitcoin. So BlackRock being I believe the #1 financial institution in the world, I believe.
Largest asset manager.
Thank you. Largest asset manager. As far as ETFs, they're the #1 ETF holder and in the world, and that equates to 33% of the actual market of ETFs. Their record for getting ETFs approved is 575 to 1. So when they filed a week ago, and I'm going to share a little bit more information too here coming up, but when they filed a week ago, everybody else that's been trying to or is headed that way is also running like crazy to get it filed. Because with spot ETFs, what I've learned is that it's a first come, first serve. So if you're #1, you're the first one that gets looked at to get approved. #2, #3. So they're basically these major financial institutions are throwing everything at it. So I've got multiple video clips. I want to run right through these so we can keep this nice and short. But we're going to talk about BlackRock's filing, the digital currency group, Grayscale, their Bitcoin trust is involved, and then Fidelity Investments, which is the world's 3rd largest asset manager, is trying to file for an ETF and or buy out Grayscale. So massive moves this week. Let's jump into the videos. All right, first we're going to talk a little bit about Fidelity and then get into BlackRock here.
Rumors out there right now are pretty straightforward. Fidelity rumored to make seismic crypto moves soon. Rumors are Fidelity will buy out Grayscale or file a spot Bitcoin ETF application, as BlackRock did last week. A lot of people are looking at this. I would love to get you guys' feedback, whether or not you think Fidelity is going to race to an ETF or try to do something with GBDC. How does this play out for the markets in whole? Because I think obviously with BlackRock making a major filing, it starts to change things around a little bit for Fidelity. Fidelity is rumored obviously to do this move. Some of the things that you need to be aware of, though, world's 3rd largest asset manager out there, 4.2 trillion under management. And they may consider, possibly a buyout of Grayscale, which I think would be an interesting strategy. I don't know that it would necessarily, make it. When you look at Grayscale and where they are, as opposed to where Fidelity's trying to go, it could also just launch a simple filing of an ETF showing that BlackRock's kind of paving the way. That's the other aspect to this. BlackRock and Fidelity, though, could absolutely dominate one of the U.S. Spaces out there when it comes to Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the real question mark is how far will they go into other digital assets? I think that's going to be the one that we're going to continue to watch, because as we see this start to move, we've seen many different trusts out there. If you look at what Grayscale has done, maybe that's the track we'll start to see for some other aspects within the market. I want to get into some other tweets here, of course. This, of course, was Will Clemente, shown below. This is when gold, GLD, this is BlackRock's ETF for gold, when it launched, allowing easy access and exposure. I'm going to kind of pop this up here for you guys a little bit so you can kind of see. So right there, this was back in like 2005, late 2005 was the launch. And you saw the explosion within the gold asset. And obviously it hasn't really come down much from that all-time high and now starting to clip back in there. So
okay, so this graph here is when the first gold ETF was launched, and you can see that it went from $410 average price of gold to almost $2,000 over a period of 6 years. And this is my understanding. I don't have the base of knowledge in ETFs and the financial markets and stuff like that. I'm being forced basically to learn it, which I'm long overdue anyways. But you can see from my understanding, according to this graph too, the ETFs kind of rolled out in the early 2000s and basically changed the game. And so this is just a graph from gold. They're expecting or predicting that a lot of it will be the same for Bitcoin. Yep.
There's 2 ways you can look at that. With that graph right there, the ETFs were all pretty new. So maybe gold was going to do that anyway. People who say, well, it's not because of the Fidelity ETF or, whatever that ETF that
Sure.
made gold go up, it was going to do that. And it's like, no, that's one way to look at it. But another way is to know that they knew what was coming. And so they launched it before it did that. You know what I mean? And like right now, while the market is down and we're in a bear market and kind of the crypto market isn't doing real good, the fact that BlackRock, the largest fund manager in the world, is going, hey, we need a Bitcoin ETF right now. It may not be because of them that the graph goes straight up, but maybe they know what's about to happen. You know what I mean? And
Yes,
usually
of
people like
course.
that, it's like they're not just like going, oh, this is what we think is going to happen. They're the largest fund manager in the world. So they know what's going to happen. They own a minority stake in every company that you've ever heard of. If you go look at the controlling owners of the stocks, who has it? It's BlackRock. So any insider information, and I don't mean that in a negative way, any
No, we're going to get
information,
into a little bit of
okay,
that. Yeah.
any information that all of these companies around the world are putting out in their public information that BlackRock owns a piece of, and they're like, yo, do you realize all of these guys are getting ready to put Bitcoin onto their balance sheet? We ought to be the one that helps them do that. You know what I mean? And so it's like, now might just be them going, it's time. We're at the lowest possible. So now as the price is going up, this is where we're going to want to be. Just like when gold did it in 2005, we're going for it right now. So that right there, it's like the skeptical part of me says, yeah, but they probably, I mean, gold was probably going to do that anyway, because that was right leading up. That was a very positive time. That was coming off of the
Into 2008.
2001.
Yeah.
Well, it was coming off the 2001 crash, the bubble, crypto, or the web bubble, you know, the .com bubble. That's what I'm looking for. So it's like, yeah, obviously gold's a better. And then you could see where it dipped down. So it's like, that's just the way the whole market was going. Yes. And they had the foresight to develop it at the beginning and took it to the top. So if that's what they're doing right now with crypto, specifically Bitcoin, now's the time to grab some.
Yeah. And to paint a quick, better picture, the way that I understand ETFs is basically ETFs made it incredibly easy for institutional money to get into hardcore assets, which would have been very difficult to own prior to. But an ETF gets into the funds, and it's not, you don't have the direct exposure and risk of the actual commodity or asset or whatever it is within the ETF, but you're still getting involved in that. And it made it very easy for institutional money to do that.
Amazon has a ton of extra money. They want to invest it in gold. They don't go buy gold bricks and store it at the Amazon warehouse. They have to buy a paper form of gold. Fidelity, BlackRock, they're the ones that make that paper. They, especially what you want is the spot ETF. A spot ETF says we have the physical, asset. We have the physical asset. The price changes. We have it. It doesn't matter. We're not making futures. We're not making guesses. We have the asset. So the company, Amazon, gives us $1 gajillion to invest in gold. We buy the gold. We hold the gold. They get the paper asset on their banks. So it's like, yes, it's very easy. Now, we talk all the time about self-custody, and that's easier for an individual and small organizations. But somebody like an Amazon or a Microsoft or Google, any of these companies that have major retirement programs, major, bonuses and benefits for their employees, they can't just buy individual Bitcoin. They can, but it's a much easier path to buy an ETF. And so that's what it makes it very easy for 401ks, IRAs, pension plans. They can buy into these gold and Bitcoin ETFs just like buying any other stock. It makes it so easy. And that in turn, even if you were interested in it before, but you couldn't figure out how to do it, or you didn't want to get a Coinbase account, or you didn't want to get a MetaMask wallet, now it's just as easy as selling some of your Pepsi stocks and buying some Bitcoin stocks.
Yeah. Hundreds of billions they're predicting over the years. So why is Fidelity interested in acquiring Grayscale? And let me say real quick, I have multiple videos that we're just going to try and run through here, articles. We're trying to be as concise, but give you the information that's important. We're going to have these links for these videos and these articles down below. I don't know how in depth as a viewer you want to get into this stuff. I like to dig into the weeds a little bit more. These videos are some of the best that I've watched with talking about what's going on with this market. So I highly recommend watching them. We'll leave it up to you. I'm giving you the highlights today for sure. So why is the financial giant interested in Bitcoin fund and possible spot ETFs? Plans to acquire Grayscale, the world's largest digital asset management company with over 20 billion in assets. So Fidelity, for lack of better words, they could just buy it and they're up and running. They don't have to develop the system. Grayscale allows customers to dabble in crypto assets through exchange traded funds. We just talked about that. As you mentioned, currently there's Bitcoin future ETFs, not spot ETFs. That's what these approvals, these filings are going after, these spot ETFs. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has not yet greenlighted any company to open a Bitcoin spot ETF within the U.S. But that BlackRock with a 575 approval to 1 rating makes, for a lot of the so-called experts, makes a huge difference. And then they've got another little secret in also that makes people believe they're going to actually get approval for this. Now, you'll hear about this, but it's still at minimal 45 days from what they call the 19B4 filing. More likely, it could be as long as 240 days. I'll end this article real quick with this interesting point. Fidelity has doubled down on Bitcoin-related stocks since the start of the year. The corporation is now the 3rd largest MicroStrategy stock owner, increasing its exposure by over 650% year to date. So that's 2023. Fidelity has increased their position in MicroStrategy by 650%. And it ain't because of the tech.
Sailor's company,
yes.
MicroStrategy.
Yes.
See, so that's another way that companies can get, exposure to Bitcoin is by a company that just that owns literal Bitcoin. So it's like, that's how they kind of got around it is, we're not doing an ETF. We're just buying it for our balance sheet. Well, if you own stocks in a company that owns physical Bitcoin, the worth of that company rises and falls with Bitcoin. Man, that's genius.
So business intelligence firms, MicroStrategy is famously one of the largest Bitcoin holders with over 140,000 Bitcoin, which is approximately 0.7 of the total amount of Bitcoin in circulation. Holding the MicroStrategy stock and if they buy Grayscale simultaneously would ensure Fidelity's tight grip on the crypto market. So like you just said, they're finding ways to get their hands on Bitcoin. And so are some of the largest holders of Bitcoin also. So let's keep this going. I'm gonna pull up this next video here.
The difference is now I think we are getting to the stage where the majors are starting to step in. And it feels like this has been something that's been coiling up for quite some time. If you look at what Preston Pish said, he says, "I'm sorry, but after watching BlackRock, Fidelity, Citadel, Schwab, and now Deutsche Bank all apply for Bitcoin ETFs and spot exchanges, especially after the SEC just dropped a TRO on Binance and sues Coinbase, how can you not think this past year was not basically a setup?" And I think that's the big one that kind of plays into this. So big situation overall. Anyway, we're looking at this as it goes. One of the things that will happen here, I think, too, this was an article in from The Block. Charles Schwab, of course, Citadel-backed crypto exchange. We've reported on this extensively before. It was about, how long ago was that, guys? I think it was 9 months when we did the EDX story. But this was essentially what was happening. Let me kind of zoom in on this for you. EDX will offer trading in 4 cryptocurrencies: Bitcoin, Ether, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. Along with that, the exchange was the first revealed in September. Back then, we saw, seeking to cater to brokers and investors interested in digital assets, and will announce its official launch today. Now, why is this important? EDX said, I'll get to that in a second. EDX said it draws on traditional finance standards, but will operate as a non-custodial exchange and won't directly handle customers' digital assets. So I have opinions on both those things. Why is this important? First thing is this is starting to move into asset managers, meaning the typical asset managers who's managing securities, etc. People are asking about the capability of getting into Bitcoin or Ethereum or etc. Problem is there hasn't been a way to do that outside ETFs, which don't exist yet. outside of Fidelity, which is a do-it-yourself product. EDX won't be. That's not really a retail product, but it's a retail financial advisor product, which now opens up a big zone of capital, much like what I just showed you in terms of where private funds and savings, and if you look at just the managed funds that are out there within a lot of these networks, this starts to really get very interesting because now another big pool is going to gain access. And of course, that's just like if you just think about what Fidelity's done with Bitcoin and ETH already. Imagine that in a state right now with EDX. This was the website.
So he's obviously talking about these tools that are being built, and this is one of the biggest ones here that BlackRock is involved with.
Right here, listen in.
Some of the next things that are coming up, those are obviously some of the logos of larger, financial institutions. Some of them are global, some of them are US domiciled, that are interacting with crypto today. And it's safe to say that when you have these kind of organizations that are interacting with crypto, the environment is way, way more mature than it was 2 years ago, when it was 4 years ago. But where does that actually take the ecosystem, right? For us, what this means is that these kind of players are looking for a much, much wider tool set, right? So the couple of things that are coming up, we almost divide the world of institutional crypto adoption into these two zones. We're talking about the short term and the long term. On the short term, there's a couple of really, really known things that need to happen in order to facilitate further adoption of the institutions.
So he starts getting into all of these companies that are looking for these tools to implement the purchasing of these assets, and maybe they don't want to hold them. Maybe you're still holding them, but you're invested in these different funds, these different cryptos, like all of these major institutional or banks and money funds and so forth, private funds that are looking for ways to get into this. And so one of your personal favorites and my personal favorites that gets into this is Mr. Pompliano, and he has a couple gentlemen on that are going to talk about specifically what these ETFs are, and they're going to start giving a time frame, and you can almost hear the excitement coming out of their voices when they're talking about these. All right, we got a couple of short clips here that will kind of bring it all together, and then I got a short article I want to show, and here we go.
With him is 3 and 2, so do with that what you will. I'm not betting on the SEC changing. I'm just betting on BlackRock knowing something. That's what I'm betting on. I'm betting on BlackRock is not a firm that plays around, and they have a lot of intelligence, knowledge, and they don't want to get rejected. I mean, that's just not what they do. Like I said, I've just tweeted out their record of getting ETF filings approved is 575 and 1. That's a pretty good record. So I'm going to bet on that record and bet on BlackRock, and I think there'll be approval by the end of the year.
What was that record? You said it's 570 and 1?
They've had 575 ETFs approved and only 1 rejected.
And why did?
So Pomp begins to ask him what was the deal with that 1 rejection, and basically it was just kind of a quirky deal that it wasn't anything that was a real denial. And then now this is kind of where it gets exciting. So this will bring us, this will wrap it up here.
So I also think it's going to be approved. So that I talked about those 240 days, depending on when BlackRock submits their 19B4 application, the earliest it probably could happen is sometime in late February, probably very late February, early March, where it would be the ultimate end deadline. But I do think I think it's going to be approved. I can't think of any other issuer that if they filed, that it would change my my thesis on whether or not we're going to get a spot Bitcoin ETF. BlackRock is like as strong as it gets for an indicator on where the SEC is leaning. The other thing I'm going to say is obviously kind of unrelated to the ETF side of things. Coinbase is being sued by the SEC for operating unlicensed securities exchange, all of these things, right? But one thing that's not up for question here is Bitcoin. And I kind of wonder if Gary and the SEC are like, we already said that Bitcoin's not a security. We know it's a commodity. We're not even arguing that, while they're arguing Ether, which I think is also ridiculous, but that's a different story. They might just be like, we'll just let this ETF, the Bitcoin ETF thing go, because we need to go after all these other situations with these other level ones like Solana and what have you. Like, so they're going after Coinbase for those other things, and they're not really worried about Bitcoin. So I wouldn't be surprised if there might be some changing of the tune within the SEC, because I really don't understand the reasoning behind like continuing to not deny these things. So yeah, and then as far as money goes, I don't know if it would break the BitO's record of $1 billion in 2 days. I don't think it would potentially, but I mean, it's not a crazy thing to think. This thing will get billions of dollars within the first 6 months, I would guess, assuming Bitcoin doesn't half in price again. But that's a different situation.
I'm going to join you guys, and as we know, predictions are stupid and we're never right. But I think it gets $1 billion in the first day.
So there you go. Pomp is calling $1 billion in the first day, and he kind of goes on to explain a little bit where he thinks that's from. But just confirming, and according to Pomp, these are the two top experts when it comes to ETFs and the understanding of ETFs and so forth. So these guys are both calling for it to pass. They're calling for it to make, billions of dollars within the first couple of days, hundreds of billions. They even state earlier in the video over the years. So we're talking about, and we've seen it with Bitcoin jumping 16% since last week, which this Blackrock was announced a week ago. So huge things going on as far as that goes, and institutional money coming in. I want to show one more quick article here, because this is Blackrock's little secret, or at least that's how it's being described. Okay, here's what some of these guys are calling BlackRock's secret weapon, a way that they've found to get the SEC to actually approve a spot Bitcoin ETF. And the way they're looking, so iShares is BlackRock's profile basically of ETFs. And so what they're looking at doing is the Exchange Commission, SEC, this week might stand a better chance than previous attempts by other fund managers, thanks to the promise of a surveillance sharing agreement between exchanges. And again, I totally lack knowledge when it comes to this stuff, but I have never heard of this before. And so after the 19B4 filing, which is what starts the actual process where the SEC has to give them an answer between 45 and 240 days, to mitigate against market manipulation, the NASDAQ will be brought in to enter into a surveillance sharing agreement with an operator of a spot trading platform for Bitcoin. So basically, BlackRock is saying, hey, if you'll allow us to implement this ETF, then we'll agree to allow another organization, financial organization separate from us, NASDAQ, to monitor our books, basically, which is probably why you don't hear about this, because not too many financial institutions are interested in letting outside entities come in to watch what they're doing. But if they can get this ETF passed with hundreds of billions of dollars of institutional money, they might be willing to do it. And BlackRock, there's definitely some questions on their connections and what they got going on. Surveillance sharing agreements allow for a sharing of information about market trading activity, clearing activity, and customer identification, allowing for little possibility of market manipulation. So customer identification. So now we're leaving that decentralized crypto realm and getting pulled back into that centralization, which BlackRock is a big part of. And so closing here, the SEC is very concerned with market manipulation related to Bitcoin prices and has cited this in almost all of its previous rejections. So that's the rejection, but the reality is Bitcoin is the only one they've labeled a commodity. They're allowing all these institutions to do these different things. They just haven't allowed an ETF. And if you get into the weeds of this, if they allow an ETF, that throws a lot of wrenches in a program called CBDCs and all the stuff that's going on there. So there's a lot of coincidences of why an ETF has not been allowed yet, especially when these major institutions have been trying to tell the SEC, and the SEC knows this, that if you allow an ETF, it removes a lot of the market manipulation and protects a lot of investors, which is also why the SEC might be getting sued by Congress for damages that the SEC is allowed to happen to actual consumers because they have not put out regulations. They keep drawing along and people keep getting hurt. And so you can get deep into the weeds on this. If this stuff interests you, watch these links, these articles. It's a good place to start. I barely touched on this stuff, but take away from this long segment here, major money is moving into the market. We say that all the time. The ETF, if that passes, which it looks like it very well could, BlackRock has the best chance, then you're talking about billions instantly and hundreds of billions over the next couple of years. So that might send Bitcoin skyrocketing, pumping. Not financial advice.
Right. And since not legal advice, don't take anything I say too serious, just so I don't get sued later on. But I think it's cute how they're pretending that BlackRock has now officially sent in all this information and they're hoping that the SEC will allow them to do it. We all know that the world runs on whose pockets are getting greased. BlackRock didn't get to where it's at by sitting and waiting and hoping that a couple of dorks at the SEC say yes or no to their deal. They would not put their name on something, put it on there, send it down the line with the chance that they could say no. It's a done deal. If they want it, it's already done. They've already greased the pockets of whoever needs to get it done. It's just a matter of going through the motions, just like, I won't get political. We all know that if BlackRock wants it done, it's just going to be done. It's nice that they're going through the motions and saying we're doing it by the books. But if BlackRock has decided that they're going to have a Bitcoin ETF, the SEC is not going to stop them. And even if some people in there thought it was a bad idea, all they have to do is pay enough of the people to make it sound like a good idea, and it's a done deal. So I can't imagine any reason why they would go this far and not expect it 100% to go through. And if BlackRock expects it to go through, you can look at their track record. It's going to go through. So that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you have to buy into their ETF for you to benefit. Because it's a spot ETF, you can have decentralized Bitcoin in a decentralized wallet that nobody knows about. And the value of that will go up because of all this other stuff. You don't have to be into this ETF. Now, with that being said, we've been contributing to Roth IRAs and stuff like that for years. And when it happens, they say, $1 billion in a day. I guarantee, I don't want to guarantee, but I'm on Pomp's side. It's going to happen. It's going to be $1 billion. I'm changing probably, I don't want to say 100%, but probably 100% of the money that I have. Because like right now I'm in stuff like casinos and food and, AT&T.
That's propped up by the dollar.
Right. And in a Roth IRA, you can only put in $6,000 a year or something like that. So there's a limit to how much you can do. Well, I can buy that stuff anytime, but this might be the last chance to buy Bitcoin at it. You know what I mean? So if you convert all of that and get it to Bitcoin, I'm going to be dumping thousands of dollars into an ETF, a spot ETF. If it is a spot ETF, I will be converting a lot of my stocks into whichever company has that ETF, because like the gold one, I expect it to pretty much go straight up for 10 years. Yeah. Now, that guy was talking about how Bitcoin is a commodity, not a security, and they were going to be looking into these other layer ones, which are securities, which go to basically fund the inner workings of the business, basically like a stock or a share of a company.
Low-hanging fruit.
But one of the layer ones that I personally love, not only because it yields interest on Coinbase, but because I like the owner and I like the community, is Cardano. And Cardano has now announced their first automotive project that will be launched on the Cardano blockchain. And like Ryan mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's called the Tuck coin. This is it right here. This is, if you're familiar with Asian countries, these tuk-tuks are the primary mode of travel for tourists and for getting around town. The roads are small, they're crowded, there's people everywhere. So if you're just moving people, these tuk-tuks, which right now are gas and diesel powered, are weaving through the streets. They're terrible for the environment. They're inefficient. Fuel is getting ridiculously hard to get into these inner cities. There's 1.2 million tuk-tuks on the road just in Sri Lanka. This is where this is getting started. In Sri Lanka, there's over 1 million of these little gas-powered deals on the roads right now. And so what they're doing is launching these electric vehicles, this tuk project, electric vehicles and the charging stations around them to make more reliable, cleaner energy, safer. Apparently, they have a thing with rolling over and a lot of wrecks, probably because it's a 3-wheeled vehicle. You wouldn't think they would just put that 4th wheel on there, but regardless, they have a very safe tuk-tuk here. It's got a very safe rollover cage, and they're going to put these charging stations all around Sri Lanka, and they're hoping to eventually replace these aging, old, gas-guzzling tuk-tuks. And it's not even just like a normal 4-cylinder car. It's kind of like a 2-stroke dirt bike engine. So it burns gas super efficiently. It's terrible for the environment. Cardano is a big believer in green energy, and they're trying to do stuff this way, and they're trying to use blockchain and crypto as a springboard into making the world a better place. This Tuk coin will be on the Cardano blockchain. I think they've got a whole website. They actually have a great website. Back when Ryan and I used to review entire crypto projects, we'd go look at their website, we'd look at their team, we'd look and see if this looked like a project that was going to make it. Man, this thing is solid. Front to back, it's got the right team, it's got the right backing, they've got the best people on it, they've got a huge team, they've already got the technology and the infrastructure going. They just need to implement the actual payment processing part of it, which is where Cardano comes in. It's a very efficient, very low energy, safe payment system. The Tuk coin will be launching. I think you have the ability to get in on the whitelist to get this Tuk coin. So the way that, XYO or NXTT, well, let's see, NXTT's on Polygon, XYO's on Ethereum, Tuk coin will be on Cardano. So they have the ability to get in if you're looking, even in this down market, to start investing in new projects, stuff that might, get exciting later. And one of the things Ryan and I are always talking about is real world usage for crypto projects. And this is it. This is basically like if Teslas in America started using Dogecoin to fuel up, to get their electricity. If they started paying with that, with Dogecoin exclusively, then what that would do to Dogecoin is what they're expecting the Tuk coin to happen. So very interesting. I love Cardano. I love this project. I mean, I like projects like this that have real, they make sense. There's a lot of electric vehicle hate right now. Like, well, they're just not efficient enough, and they're just not really what we're looking for. But a tuk, if you've ever been in any of these countries, that it's time for them to die.
Yeah. It's a main transportation source.
Main transportation, but the way, these old, they stink, they're smoking, they're going down, they're rattle traps, they're about to all fall apart, and it's time to have something newer, cleaner, less maintenance, less pollution, cheaper to use, cheaper to refuel. I don't know. Do you call it refuel when you just, I guess, recharge? Cheaper to recharge. So I think it's really cool. And I think this is a perfect way to dip your toes into, a full scale fleet of electric vehicles powered by a crypto. If something like this works, then people like Elon Musk go, hey, it's working for the tuk-tuk in Sri Lanka. Is this something we want to consider doing, where you can buy and sell and pay for amenities and electricity in your Tesla with crypto? So
yeah, it's hard when you see projects like this. It's hard you hear the one side that's like crypto, like some of these politicians and non-believers or whatever, they're like, crypto's a scam. There are all these words. But biggest of all, there's no practical use for crypto. There's no, like you read from President Biden earlier, whatever his comment was, that there's no practical, there is no use for these cryptos. And then you have something like this is not only is it a use case, it's improving the environment. It makes it much more secure for the people operating the machines. It makes it much easier for people who want to take rides. Like it, again, a big part of the reason why we started this channel is the technology makes so much dang sense. And there's so many applications for it. And we're seeing it more and more and more, even in a bear market, because the tech is so good.
Right. Especially in a bear market, that's where you're going to see the projects that work.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got a good idea when there's gajillions of dollars of stupid money just pouring into the industry. But if you're making stuff like this happen when the money is constantly getting less and less and less, then you know you got something that's worthwhile. And like I said, this started as more of a environmental issue where they were going to start replacing these tuk-tuks, and they were dealing with the government, and it was like, we got to be a little bit clean. I mean, we're causing smog, we've got dirty air. So it kind of started as, we need to fix this. And then as they got into what is the best way to fix this, it's not, I mean, it is electric, but it's not, well, then the old method of, what if I only get $1 worth of electric and 30 cents of that has to go to the credit card company for swiping the credit card, and it's just like, how can we make it even better? And it's like, well, electric and a better car and better charging stations and, touchless, no point crypto, you're not losing any money in the transaction to buy your electricity. And I just started making it more and more and more efficient. And the best way to do that is something with super low gas fees and a super solid network like Cardano. And that's all we've got for the week. If you remember last week, we ended with some crypto prices, and every single one of them, except for the stable coins, was in the red. Well, news travels fast in the crypto market that never sleeps. Everything is in the green, except for just a few, here and there projects. But for the most part, the last week has been green for everybody, which is good to see. Especially now, if you scale out, we're still way down, but it is nice to see it turn around. And Bitcoin is obviously the big winner right now. It's up 17, almost 18% over the last week, over $30,000.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see if it breaks that 30,500. That's kind of been the marker where it bounced off of this last go round. That's a big line there. So,
well, I'm guessing as the months roll on and we get closer to a BlackRock spot ETF, we're going to see some exciting things in the crypto industry.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see. It's definitely going to be exciting one way or the other.
It's good because it's been all heartbreak for the last 16 months.
It's been rough. All right, man. Great episode.
See you next week.
All right.